And Willie, I just let me tread very carefully with the next thing I say here. The New York Times reporting that members of Robert Mueller's own staff knew early on that he was obviously challenged, whether it was by a medical condition or something else, and that he was not able to put in the hours that he had been able to put in before, and that things were challenging. And we suspect now, perhaps that's why he had an aide next to him the entire time. The Times talking about Mueller's labored performance was a departure from his once fabled stamina. Well, the Democrats obviously had to know this. Jerry Nadler obviously had to know this. Other people scheduling this hearing obviously had to know this. And I'm just, I am really surprised if they're overselling this as the movie, the blockbuster movie, and they know that the man is facing apparently some challenges that they put him in front of the cameras. Of course, we were all calling for public hearings, but we did not know what people close to Robert Mueller knew and what the Democrats knew, that he should not have been in the glare of a public spotlight if he is facing some medical challenge.
Well, there are a number of reasons he didn't want to testify. I think among them were some of the reasons we saw yesterday, that he wasn't perhaps feeling physically up to it. That's perhaps why, as you point out, he wanted his aide next to him throughout both of those hearings. But as John says, Democrats couldn't make the case to the American public for impeachment, so they hung it all on Robert Mueller. They thought by his sitting there, in fact, even just restating what's been out there since March in his 448-page report, that would make the case to the American people. It's unclear if he accomplished that yesterday. It doesn't look like it so far. Ken Dilanian, there were a number of times when Robert Mueller, Republicans were questioning the origins of his investigation and then the integrity of the investigation as it proceeded. And there were a number of times when Mueller allowed inaccuracies or even conspiracies presented by Republicans to go unchecked. Let's take a look.
In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign.
You didn't follow the special counsel regulations. It clearly says, write a confidential report about decisions reached. Nowhere in here does it say, write a report about decisions that weren't reached. Volume 2 of this report was not authorized under the law to be written.
Either Steele made this whole thing up and there were never any Russians telling him of this vast criminal conspiracy that you didn't find, or Russians lied to Steele.
Peter Strzok hated Trump.
Okay.
You didn't know that before he was made part of your team. Is that what you're saying?
I did not know that.
Joseph Mifsid's a guy who told Papadopoulos, the mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into.
Willie, really quickly, the stupidity is staggering I mean, just the stupidity, the ignorance. I hope that they're just stupid, because if they're not stupid, then they're willfully lying to the American people and beating up a highly decorated Marine. But Willie, the Attorney General of the United States also lied about the genesis of this investigation as well. It is really shocking, and nobody's pushing back. And he certainly couldn't yesterday.
Ken Dilanian, you've been looking at this closely from the beginning. What jumped out at you about what we heard from Republicans, especially as it pertains to the origins, the genesis of this investigation into Russian interference in the election?
Well, what jumped out at me was that they were very methodical about the ways in which they were perpetrating this misinformation, and Robert Mueller didn't push back. That was one of the most surprising things to me about the hearing. And I think I can speak to Joe's question, what didn't the Democrats know? I'll tell you, reporters who have been covering this story for the last 2 years had been hearing for weeks that there was an issue with Robert Mueller. but people close to him pushed back strongly, and I think they did with Democrats as well, and said, this is overblown, he's fine. And I believe that's why this hearing happened, because we were all asking ourselves yesterday, why did the Democrats let this happen? And look, I have nothing but reverence for Robert Mueller. Joe, as you said, a man who volunteered for combat in Vietnam when most members of his social class were avoiding that war, a man who transformed the FBI after 9/11. But the reason people are focusing on the optics, guys, is because a congressional hearing is a communications exercise. The whole point, as John Heilemann said, of yesterday, according to the Democrats who set it up, was to get the message out of all these things you guys are talking about to the American public who hadn't heard it. One of our NBC News Wall Street Journal polls showed that less than half of Americans had heard any news coverage at all about the Mueller report. And that's compared to like 75% for a mass shooting, say the Pulse nightclub in Miami. So it wasn't breaking through. The point yesterday was to breathe life into the testimony. And obviously, you guys played the best moments of that hearing for Democrats, where Robert Mueller did breathe life, did animate some of the key points. But at other points, he didn't seem to know what was in his own report. More than 100 times, he simply referred the questioner back to the report as if he didn't understand the question or didn't know what the substance was. And those were some key moments where Democrats were trying to elicit some very damaging conduct on behalf of the president. And Mueller just didn't deliver that for them. And that's why you're seeing all this commentary about why and how this is not going to change the dynamic.
Yeah. Well, Ken, what about the lies there that we heard about the genesis of the report? Can you do some fact checking for us?
Well, I mean, the first clip you played from Jim Jordan, I was shocked, where he said the FBI spied on Carter Page. I mean, and that started with the Attorney General, William Barr, saying that. And I was surprised that Mueller didn't push back, because, of course, you don't use the term spying when the FBI goes to court and gets a warrant from a federal judge to conduct surveillance on a man who had already been recruited by Russian intelligence in a previous case.
And Ken, by the way, wasn't there a FISA warrant against this guy back in like 2013 before Donald Trump had even thought about running for president?
That's right. He had been targeted by Russian intelligence in a separate case, and there's a wiretap showing that he was recruited. He had traveled to Russia. And look, there were other Republicans who essentially, one Republican said that Robert Mueller's report was un-American. They accused him of violating the special counsel regulations. And unfortunately, there was no pushback to that. Now, even on his best day, Robert Mueller may not have pushed back because he may have just decided there was no percentage in it. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to get embroiled in these partisan fights. But the Republicans have really perpetrated a campaign of misinformation about this entire investigation and the predicate of it. And, there's an Inspector General review that's going to come out eventually, and they may find some technical violations. But the idea that this was a deep state conspiracy, a Democratic plot, to attack Donald Trump is just fantasy, and yet the Republicans methodically sort of put that message out yesterday in clips that can be played over and over again on Fox News.
Well, and again, Mika, 60% of Republicans believe that the investigation was honest and straightforward. And if it was this deep state conspiracy, it was a deep state conspiracy run by Republicans for Republicans. I mean, the judges that approved, the FISA judges that approved those wiretaps with Carter Page, all Republican appointees. So again, it's just absolute nonsense, and the Republicans were left to just, all they could do was just lie, scream, and yell yesterday.
It was quite a display.
A very bleak day for House Republicans.
I actually think the gotcha moment that Democrats might have been looking for, although I think they were looking to get information out to the American people, but the gotcha moment came thanks to a Republican, Representative Buck, asking the president, and this is the follow-up question when he didn't get the answer he wanted, you believe he committed, you believe he can be indicted when he leaves office? And Robert Mueller said he does. Like, big ouch. That is as bad as it gets. So the president doesn't get reelected. He heads right into an indictment.
Which, of course, Willie, led to one of Chris Matthews' greatest openings ever.
Oh, my God. It was amazing.
Actually was jumping up and down screaming when he said,
what was it?
Second term. or
Second
jail
term
term.
or
Let's play
jail term.
hardball.
Oh, Mika
Yeah.
lives for
Well-
those. Mika catalogs those
she
hardball
loves-
opens.
It was a
She-
good one.
she
And by
loved
the
that.
way, Chris Matthews crystallized the most painful part of the day for President Trump. He can be indicted when he leaves office. So second term or prison term.
Well-
That's what Bob Mueller brought to the table, thanks to the Republicans.
Well, and you know,
great job,
Willie,
guys.
there is actually great significance to that. I have been saying for some time, because people very close to Donald Trump had been saying a couple of years ago they did not think he would seek a second term. He wasn't enjoying the job.
Oh,
it was
he's
too
got to.
ugly. Now, not only
Desperate.
is he going to seek a second term to avoid a jail term, possibly, if you listen to the testimony yesterday, he's going to once again do a win at all cost campaign. It may even get uglier in 2020 than
Democrats-
it did in 2016, because Donald Trump's freedom may be on the line. Think about that. We've got a guy
Nothing
that
to
is
lose.
running for re-election, so he won't get indicted and be sent to jail, if you listen to the testimony yesterday.
And I'm sure you talked to
Okay.
a lot of Democrats like I did yesterday, and many who spoke in public who've now said, after yesterday, we've gotten everything we wanted. We got the report. We got Mueller before us. The Judiciary Committee got the underlying evidence. Let's turn the page and go win the election next year. That's what some Democrats are saying.
NBC's Ken Delanian, thank you very much. A half hour in, and we are still only getting started. We'll bring in one of the members who questioned Bob Mueller yesterday. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries joins us. Plus, the top Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, Virginia's Mark Warner, is our guest.
We're going to ask him why Republicans killed 2 bills last night that would have protected you and me and American democracy from Vladimir Putin. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.